This channel tries to avoid the divisive taint of modern day and transient politics, but where that policy falls down is where history is affected. I'm against the removal of statues, for instance, although I've not made any videos on that subject, but I feel compelled to wade into this issue after a recent visit to the Wellcome Collection in London. It is great to have museums back after 2 years of virtual viewings, social distancing and draconian rules preventing proper access. So it was with this newfound freedom that I went to the slightly odd and varied attraction, which is close to the Euston Station transport hub. I had been here before and been very interested in one particular exhibit which I had photographed previously, a Chimu mummy from Peru estimated to be around 600 to 800 years old. But, after visiting the other day, I was troubled to see that this startling subject had been removed and replaced with a disappointing modern poem. This was not for routine maintenance or upkeep, but as a deliberate hiding of history from public view. This channel is called Hidden History, but that is a reference to my wish to bring history to a wider audience. It is not an injunction to censorship. So now, this Chimu mummy, which was a young man in pre-conquistador Peru, who had cheated death in many ways to still be viewed and talked about hundreds of years after what might have been a horrible death by sacrifice, has been shunted aside and concealed. Why, you may ask, has this been done? Well, the museum added an explanation, which read, "This case used to exhibit the naturally preserved or mummified body of a young man who died approximately 600 to 800 years ago. Museum records say he was from the Chimu culture of northern Peru, but further research is needed to confirm his origins. This man's remains have been on show since the gallery opened in 2007, but we have now removed his body from display." This is in recognition of changing ethical standards around displaying human remains and in light of work reviewing whose perspectives receive prominence in our collections. The body was displayed without its textile burial garments. Many European collections from the 19th century onwards have unwrapped mummified human remains, prioritising the gaze of science and museum visitors over the burial intentions of the culture of origin. Henry Wellcome's Historical Medical Museum purchased this body, along with other South American human remains, at a London auction house in the 1920s. This was a time when human remains were often acquired for anthropological study, including to support the development of racist scientific theories about supposed racial hierarchies. Recognising these histories and contexts is important for how we care for human remains in our collection in future. These remains will be stored in accordance with ethical guidelines for museums. We will research this man's geographical and cultural origins, working with people who have relevant expertise in South American cultures in order to inform appropriate future care. Now, you may or may not agree with this stance, but I certainly don't. Even if I did, it is hypocritical and inconsistent, since directly opposite the now empty cabinet in which the mummy was kept is a more recent shrunken head from the modern Peru-Ecuador border region, but from the Shuar people and dated simply from before 1925. The museum also features other human remains in the form of a fragment of skin from the outlandish philosopher Jeremy Bentham, various skulls and skull fragments, and a lock of hair said to have belonged to King George III. This policy of removal robs people from the opportunities that museums are there to provide, a window to the past. Also, the missing body is at least 600 years old. Who is offended by its presence? The Chimu culture, which practiced child sacrifice, was effectively destroyed by the Inca Empire under Topa Inca Yupanqui in around 1470, before they in turn were conquered by the Spanish conquistadors under Francisco Pizarro. This was not some modern instance of a culture being suppressed and its history expunged. This new cancel culture orthodoxy is what has done that, rather than the presence of mummified remains in a museum. We have much to learn and marvel at from history, and that becomes far more difficult if it is concealed from us. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and most importantly subscribe. Thank you for watching.